Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my greenhouse. My name is Joe. It is March and here on the Northern Hemisphere, spring is definitely on the way. We have more and more sunshine, the temperatures, at least the daytime temperatures, are slowly on the rise, and you can see the nature outside slowly starting to wake up. In front of my greenhouse I've got this bed of crocus and they are in full bloom. It's just amazing. The bees love it and of course I love it. If you're interested in seeing and hearing more about activities that I'm engaged in here in early spring, preparing my own cactus and other succulent plant collection for the next growing season, stay with me. This is definitely the video for you. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Joe. The month of March is always a really busy month, and it's because it's a transition. It's a transition between the dormancy period of my plants, where over the winter months they've been basically standing in a very cool temperature, in a very cool location, and completely dry. Very few plants that I've given maybe a couple of drops of water, maybe on the non-cacti side or the epiphytic cacti, they've gotten a few drops of water, but all the others, especially the desert cacti, they've been standing completely dry pretty much since October, when I last watered them. Now, what's really important is the cacti have been standing dry, but they've also been standing cool at temperatures of about 6 to 8 degrees centigrade here in the greenhouse. Now, temperatures outside on most days and certainly nights will have been below that anyway, so I need to basically just with some heaters, I use electric heaters, I need to keep my greenhouse at those 6 to 8 degrees centigrade, definitely frost-free, because most of my cacti are very sensitive to low temperatures. They will not be tolerant to temperatures dropping towards the freezing point. So, as I say, winter time, dry, cool, 6 to 8 degrees centigrade. And something I'm sometimes asked about is, what about the lighting? Well, during these winter months where my cacti are in complete dormancy, there's hardly any photosynthesis or metabolism going on. So light really isn't a problem, isn't an issue. There isn't a requirement for a lot of light, because similar to no requirement for fertilizers, so nutrients, the plants are in dormancy, they're not growing, so you want to keep them dry, you want to keep them cool. Of course, if you are interested in getting more information about how to care for your cacti and most other succulent plants during the winter months, I've got a video. In fact, I think I've got 2 or 3 videos on this topic on my channel. So just go ahead and check those out. But we're going to power ahead with the early spring preparations that have been ongoing. And preparation number 1, of course, is the insulation of my greenhouse. Over these very cold winter months, I insulate my greenhouse with sort of heavy duty bubble wrap, and that is simply to insulate and to save on energy costs. On average, over a winter, I save about 30% electricity by having this insulating layer of bubble wrap foil over my greenhouse. The main drawback, though, with having that insulating layer of bubble wrap is that, of course, it filters the light quite heavily. But as I said earlier, light isn't so much of an issue during the dormancy period over these relatively dark winter months anyway. But as we move into spring, I'd like to, of course, offer as much as I can good light, good UV to my plants. So the insulation has to come down during March, and that depends a little bit, of course, on the weather. I'm not going to do that at a time of, minus 10, minus 15 degrees centigrade outside. So I will be watching the weather, and as soon as I can see that we're on a definite warming trend, then that's when I take down the bubble wrap. Now the good thing is, it takes me less than half a day to actually either put up or take down the bubble wrap foil, and that's because I use these specifically or specially designed fasteners which have been glued to the outside of my glass house, and I did that the first time around, of course, several years back. That's also when I cut the bubble wrap foils into place, and I marked exactly where I was fastening the foils, and that helps me find back those attachment points very quickly again. And in the same way, as I'm taking off the bubble wrap, I just put those fasteners, I take them off, take the foil off, and put the screw back onto the attachment. Now, as soon as I've taken down the bubble wrap foil, there is suddenly a lot more light, of course, in the greenhouse. And that's the whole idea, of course, of taking down the insulation. I don't need it anymore because the nights become less and less cold. And also because I'm trying to get a lot of light into my greenhouse to my plants. However, this is where a really important point comes in. I definitely don't want to just take off the insulation, the bubble wrap, and then leave the greenhouse exposed to the spring sun. Main reason, of course, being that that would very likely burn, that would result in sunburn of many of my cacti, because for these several months of dormancy, they've been standing in lot darker conditions. They haven't been exposed to the UV, to the sunlight, and suddenly there's all this brightness, all this UV, and of course that would lead very quickly to sunburned epidermis, the outside skin of the plants. Now, to avoid that, of course, I pretty much the same day as or the next day as I'm taking off the insulation, I put on the shade netting onto the greenhouse. Again, I put it out on the outside of the greenhouse, and the nice thing is I can actually use exactly the same fastening screws that I've been using for the bubble wrap. I can use those again to hold the shade netting in place. And as the spring sun now shines onto my greenhouse, at least for the first week or two at least, I can filter that direct sunlight in a really nice way using the shade netting. By the way, if you're looking for shade netting, if you're looking to buy shade netting yourself, there are different types, and there are also especially different grades, and that goes by the percentage of shading that they provide. I am quite happy with a 30% shading on my shade netting. Let's take a little look around the greenhouse, around the collection, and just get a feel for where the plants are right now, how they're doing after the dormancy. Now, with the increasing temperatures and also the increasing sunlight, of course, my plants will be needing the first watering. And that's always, a huge philosophical discussion among cactus and plant enthusiasts. When exactly do I start watering again after the dormancy period? Well, there isn't a golden rule really, and there certainly isn't a date by which you can go. Over the years, my experience has told me that, it's much better to simply be watching the weather forecast, and getting a feel for when actually does the outside temperature start to rise, when do the sunny periods, the sunshine start to increase, and then use that as a guide rather than saying, early March or 15th of March or 1st of April, that's when I need to transition. That rarely works, of course, because every year the weather will be slightly different. You'll probably have your own rules of thumb. What works for me is I look out for an ambient temperature in my greenhouse of 15 to 18 degrees at least, daytime temperatures, day by day, so not just for, a single day or two where the sun shines on the greenhouse, say in December, and then the temperatures inside will probably go above 15 or 18 degrees centigrade. Well, that doesn't count. In March, that's when I start to get, 5, 6, 7 day periods where I've got continuously during the daytime above 15 to 18 degrees centigrade temperatures, and that's pretty good. And that's what I use as a trigger to expose my plants to their first light spring rain, if you like. It's more of a drizzle, because what I do is the very first watering really is more of a water spraying, a light spraying, where I sort of start to wake up the plants, if you like. I get them exposed to this sudden humidity, the light rainfall, if you like, from the spray. And what that does to the plant is it, not just washes the epidermis of any dust or so that may have settled over the winter months, but it also triggers the plant to start growing the very first roots. And cacti, of course, have very shallow roots primarily. They also, some plants can have, in addition to that network of shallow roots just below the surface, they will also have potentially a taproot or a deeper reaching root, but it's that network of fine roots near the surface that are able to just gobble up the first humidity, the first light rain and water that actually percolates into the soil. So I basically trigger the plants, I signal to them, higher temperatures and some rain is on the way. You're okay to start growing your first roots. And that's exactly what happens. 1 or 2 days of spraying, and you can suddenly start seeing very quickly, because cacti, of course, are super adapted to these dry environments, and actually being able to transition very quickly from dry environment into growth mode because of a sudden availability of rain. The water I use to spray and then also to water my plants is rainwater, and that, of course, I've been collecting and storing outside of the greenhouse over the last few weeks and months. Now, what I don't do is take that water directly for the spraying or for the watering, because it, of course, only has a temperature of probably about 3, 4, 5 degrees centigrade, whatever the outside temperature is. And that would be quite a shock to the plant. I really don't want to do that. So what I do is I bring the amount of water that I'll be needing inside into the greenhouse maybe 2-3 days before I actually start spraying, and that then ensures that I'm using slightly temperate water that avoids that temperature shock on the plants. So rainwater is ideal. If you don't have rainwater, you can use tap water, but there again I would actually keep it in an open, bucket or a storage tank, whatever you're using. Let it settle for at least a day or two so that chlorine and whatever other substances are in the water would actually either fall out or would evaporate. And then that water is quite suitable for use as well. Ideally, the pH of the water should be slightly acidic, so not the neutral pH 7, but slightly below that in, say, the 6.5 to 6.8 kind of range. If you're dealing with really alkaline, hard water in your area, then you can actually lower the pH slightly by using a little bit of citric acid, just a little, to be able to lower that pH of the water, say slightly below 7. Once I've sprayed my plants maybe twice, maximum 3 times during those first few weeks of March, I'm ready to give them their first watering. And here again, I don't actually flood them straight away. I gradually build up the amount of water that I give them, because remember, it's not long ago that they've been in their dormancy, and it still is a little time until they're in full growth mode. So we're in this transition, and I'm going to slowly increase the amounts of water that I offer them. So to recap, light spraying to kind of trigger the first growth of roots and of the plants, and then a first light watering maybe 2-3 weeks after that. A lot of times, cacti, when you look at them carefully, many of them will actually already be giving us their signals, their own first signs that they're ready to go. And that is, when you look at them, you'll see the first buds appear, you'll see the first spines that are the fresh growth spines towards the crest of the plant. So the central axis where the new spines will be growing, you'll see some fresh growth there. And these are all signs that, the plant is signaling, hey, I'm ready to go. I need light, I need water, and let's go. When it comes to fertilizing, so nutrients, I wait about a month into the start of the growth period. So I don't actually provide any nutrients with the spray or with the first watering. Maybe with the second or the third watering, that's when I'll be adding some nutrients to get the plants going. But as you can imagine, there's not that much point actually in fertilizing the plants at a time when they're just starting to regrow, if you like, to restart their roots. And so you want to be waiting that month or 6 weeks at least, into the onset of growth before you first provide those nutrients. And the same goes for any other chemical substances like pesticides or fungicides. If you think that you need to apply those, well, I would wait until the plants really have started to move into their growth period rather than mixing that straight into the first spray or watering. Usually not a good idea. And there are tons of other activities, of course, that make this month of March a very busy one. One of those other activities is the potting and repotting of our plants, and that, of course, as much as possible I do before I actually start the spraying or the watering, because it's that time where the plants are still in their dormancy. If I'm actually repotting them into fresh pots, into fresh substrate, then the damages that will occur during repotting to the roots will be at a minimum. And also, because the roots aren't fully functioning yet, they are going to be less susceptible to rot and to damages to the plant. Here again, I've got a whole dedicated video on this topic if you're interested to hear more about this. So that's a summary of some of the activities that I'm busy with during this early spring in the month of March. And I hope that you enjoyed the little tour around the collection, and also picking up some of the infos of, what keeps me busy, how do I do these things. Of course, not everything will be applying to you and to your setup. We all have pretty unique setups, which are all quite different depending on the climate, depending on our collections, even the locations where we keep and grow our collections. Everyone has their own little subset, but it's always great, I find, to just listen in to how other collectors, how other growers are going about these tasks, because there will always be, at least I find, something that I learn from others in this way, and something that applies to my own setup. If you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, then leave me a like, leave me a comment, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, it'd be fantastic if you actually subscribed. When you subscribe, then I recommend you click the bell icon next to the subscribe button, because that will then also ensure that you get automatic updates every time there's a new video uploaded to the channel. You'll be informed free of charge, and you'll know when to go back to the channel to pick up that new video. I hope that your own collections are doing really fine after the dormancy break, and I hope that you're able to successfully transition them into the growth period. If, of course, you're living and growing on the southern hemisphere, you'll slowly be in wind down mode, bringing your plants into that dormancy period. But in any case, I wish you luck for both of those transitions, and I hope to see you very soon again on this channel here. Until then, take care and happy growing.